Hi, this is Bruce with Z Group Energy, Coolidge, Arizona. It is December 6th, 2019, right smack in the middle of the holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I hope you all are doing well. Now, before we get going here, please understand that my remarks regarding the French president are no reflection whatsoever on the French people, who, just like people in other nations, have to live with the strengths and weaknesses of our national leaders. Going one step further, I personally will always bear some allegiance to France for the powerful role that the French played in our own Revolutionary War here in America. Without French aid beginning in 1775, it's possible there wouldn't even be a free and independent America, an independent United States today. So thank you, France. Moving on to somewhat sordid geopolitical energy issues, I do have some questions. The question I want to address today is President Macron's current position on the Paris Agreement hypocritical? I asked the question because of the sniping that we recently saw at the NATO conference. Excuse me. I need a little coffee here for this. There was a little jousting back and forth between some of the leaders, notably two of the leaders, although some of it involved ISIS and some things we're not going to talk about. Energy is on the table between President Macron and President Trump, particularly regarding the Paris Accords. Now, this prompted me to want to look into this a little bit and understand why President Macron would be defensive about the Accords. I just wanted to understand. So anyway, I did that, and I learned that former investment banker, supposed outsider, I'm not sure how any investment banker is ever an outsider, but anyway, the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, in my opinion, is a recognized apologist for the 2015 Paris Climate Accord failure to successfully coordinate the production of any usable Main Street energy benefits. On top of that, President Macron has publicly criticized U.S. President Trump for what I would say was thoughtfully withdrawing the United States from the 2015 Paris Agreement. Now, many across the globe agree with President Macron, okay? But I want to ask the question, is his criticism fair? Is it even warranted? According to the World Nuclear Association, the acronym WNA, France in 2017 produced electricity nationally using the following fuel sources. I'm going to read these off for you here. I don't remember them. France, to produce electricity, got 74% of their electricity from nuclear fuel, 10% from hydro, 3% from coal, 7% from gas, 2% from solar, and 4% per wind. You don't have to remember any of that. There is a written version of this podcast on our Z Group Energy website, so you can go there and just read it, all the numbers and the costs we're going to talk about later. That's all in there. You don't need to remember it. I'm just trying to make a point. 74% of French electricity comes from nuclear. Now, that was per 2017. Now, per updated 2019 data, also provided by WNA, the World Nuclear Association, France, via its, I guess I'll call it a long-standing energy security policy, which came out of the 1973 oil crisis, wherein France wanted to be more energy independent And along that line, they went nuclear. They thought that was their best option, and that's what they did. But that's where the policy came from. It arose out of the '73 oil crisis. Well, anyway, since 2017, France has bumped their nuclear fuel usage for electrical power up to 75%. Now, approximately 17% of that comes from recycled nuclear fuel, which is probably a good thing, I guess. France is proposing, though, to reduce this nuclear use of nuclear energy to produce electricity to 50% by 2035. So that would be what? That would be a 30%, actually 33%, one-third reduction by 35. Now, this reduction in French nuclear-fueled electricity to 50% of electricity generation by 2035 is kind of interesting. I find it interesting, given that in 1999, the French Parliament recognized and acknowledged there was no feasible way for energy conservation measures or renewable alternative energy sources to viably replace French nuclear energy in the foreseeable future. So does 36 years, let's see, 1999 to 2035, that would be 36 years. Does this extend beyond 1999's foreseeable future? I don't know. Also emanating out of the 1999 French parliamentary debate came a three-pronged energy policy, okay? And the policy consisted of A, security of energy supply, B, respect for the environment, and C, paying proper attention to radioactive waste management. Now, let's juxtapose the French energy policy with environmental concerns, which two of the three-pronged stool legs, right, were related to environment. So let's take a look at that and see what we learn. Let's see how this shakes out. Now again, per WNA, France is currently the world's largest net exporter of electricity. Okay, not energy per se, but electricity specifically. So France profitably sells nuclear-fueled electricity to some of its neighbors, like Italy, Germany, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and among others, but those would be the big customers. So are there any dots to connect here? Well, I guess so. You know, France has to defend itself economically, and they're doing that. So kudos. Anyway, now President Macron, gains geopolitical climate capital by bragging on the use of low carbon emitting nuclear power. Now, we can argue about radioactive waste and the dangers of nuclear, but nobody argues with the low carbon use of nuclear power. People, the climate changers, they like that, right? The people that are concerned. So anyway, he brags on that, and while also openly criticizing fossil fuels used by other countries, notably the United States. That's a smart play by President Macron, since France has negligible fossil fuel resources of its own. Overuse of once enormous French coal reserves were, you know, basically exhausted the reserves during the Industrial Revolution. So by 2004, the relatively non-competitive, low-quality coal reserves left in France basically brought French coal mining to an end by about 2004 or so. I believe it's estimated over the next couple of years, coal mining in France will be basically at zero production. Now, France does have some natural gas resources, okay, but by the turn of the millennium, year 2000, those reserves are basically negligible. They still use gas, but it's not a big deal. They can't rely on it. Now, President Macron claims that France cares about the global environment and is serious about safely managing radioactive waste. I accept the stated French concern at face value, but I'm sorry, okay? No country on earth, including France, has solved radioactive waste disposal beyond the ridiculous idea of burying it. Okay, so all genuine concern aside, and bravo for that, to suggest a country with 67 million people and 58 operating nuclear power plants, which produces high levels of radioactive waste every year, to suggest that that is commensurate with concern for environmental safety, I'm sorry, that's insulting, okay? President Macron's position on this is just flat out pandering. Now, I've noticed that, I've not noticed President Macron mentioning France's relatively profitable nuclear-powered electricity exports, bringing in more than 3 billion euros annually. Now, granted, 3 billion euros is only about 0.5% of French exports, but given France's paucity of fossil fuel resources and their necessary reliance on nuclear power for the bulk of its nearly 2.75 trillion euro GDP, that's about 3 trillion US GDP, President Macron does an excellent job of selling France's energy resource shortcomings on the world stage. And, you know, given that the world's 7th largest economy, I think he does a good job with that. Got to give the man kudos. Now, France has 58 nuclear plants. Typically, these are pressurized water reactors. That's the type of program they went with, which, interestingly, the pressurized water reactor is actually an American design. So France helped America get started, and now we can make a contribution back to France, can't we? Anyway, the pressurized water reactors that are typically used in France have an intended useful life of about 40 years. And France's 58 plants are aging, with the average plant now about 30 years old. 15 of the 58 plants, I believe, are 35 years old. So this is getting problematic. Now, as I understand it, 17 of France's 58 power plants are being considered for closure by 2025. But they're also planning, they have plans there to extend the useful life of at least some of these plants by another decade or so. Okay, I don't know much about that program or how it's progressing, but they are considering options. Given all of this, okay, is it any wonder at all that President Macron is pedal to the metal promoting alternative energy sources? France has no other viable economic energy choice, okay? In 2016, France's Cour des Comptes, that's a government finance agency, estimated that extending the useful lives of existing nuclear reactors in France would cost about 100 billion euros, okay? Now, EDF, that's the corporation that manages the 58 nuclear power plants in France. They estimate that building 30 to 40 new plants between 2020 and 2050, I think, i.e. replacing the current nuclear fleet, along with the additional maintenance involved, during the building of the new plants, so they got to keep the old ones running, right? The additional maintenance would run about 250 billion to 300 billion euros. Okay, now, in my humble opinion, given current costs, this 250 to 300 billion euro estimate is low. Okay, I think a minimum of 400 billion, probably considerably more, would actually be realistic today. Another organization, Institut Montaigne, which is a liberal Paris think tank. I don't know much about them, but they recently estimated that a French nuclear phase out, all right, in favor of say, wind and solar, along with upgrading the national electrical grid, would cost about 217 billion euros by year 2035. And it would take another 85 billion euros or so to dismantle the existing reactors as they take them offline. Now, to me, again, this appears a lowball estimate to me, particularly as the estimate includes disposing of the radioactive waste from the 58 plants they're taking offline. Now, I doubt anybody, anywhere, can blame President Macron for making lemonade with France's energy lemons, or actively pursuing what he apparently views as the best interest of the French people. I get that completely. But, there's that but. Why criticize others? President Trump, for example, how does that help anybody at all? Does President Macron's criticism of Donald Trump's decision to pull the United States out of what appears to be an unworkable Paris Agreement, does that produce energy? Does that help anybody? I don't think so. Anyway, I understand President Macron's view, I think, but I take issue with his rhetorical criticism of President Trump, and also his defense, I guess, of the energy impotent Paris Agreement, which to date isn't really much more than a wealth transfer vehicle from financially productive Main Street countries and people, hardworking folks who produce wealth, transfer their wealth not to the less fortunate, no, but apparently to the unaudited pockets of inside crony people that Main Street can't even see. We don't know who these people are. Certainly and provably, the world's energy quandary isn't being addressed by the Paris Accords, not beyond the billions of euros and dollars and other currencies that are vanishing into unnoticed pockets. And, why do I say that? Well, I say that because nothing's happening. Alternative energy isn't going anywhere. Boob, 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 little things here and there, but basically nothing is happening. The climate denier people aren't downgrading their concerns. They're ramping up. Every year they ramp up more and more and more, whether you agree with it or not. Nothing is being done. But billions and billions and billions of dollars are being spent. Okay, so it's going somewhere. My point is, we don't know where. Now, I'd like to think that President Macron is a sincere politician on the world stage. No reason to suggest otherwise. But his self-serving position, both on energy and environmental policy, just simply brands him as just another hypocrite, apparently incapable, really, of seeking practical solutions to real problems and real issues, just like so many other politicians on the world stage. They're all doing the same thing. I'm not picking on President Macron. When I look at this whole picture, and we go through the numbers that we just looked at, President Macron's position becomes obvious. His choices are very, very limited. I don't know why he's so defensive about that, but I do believe that President Trump is 100% correct to have thoughtfully withdrawn the United States from the essentially unworkable financial Paris Accord sinkhole. The larger question, though, which so far has not been answered, is if not the Paris Accord, then what? Of course, I'm with Z Group Energy, aren't I? So probably I have an answer to that. Yeah, nothing self-serving here. Uh, Perhaps sealed supercritical geothermal generation of clean electricity at about 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour can find its way onto the energy table for consideration. How about that? Okay, at nearly half the cost of natural gas, which is running about, what, 7 cents a kilowatt hour these days, and with clean water as our only emission, okay, if you want to call it an emission. Sealed supercritical geothermal is certainly worth a look-see. It's a very viable technology. It's a concept that President Macron and the people of France could consider. I don't see any reason at all why or how it doesn't make more sense for the people of France and the people of U.S. and our leaders to work together to solve these problems rather than sniping and picking and deriding each other. That serves no useful purpose at all that I'm aware of. So my view is that a marriage of innovative American technology, per se, our patent, with the people of France makes way better sense than one country's leader picking at another country's leader. Just saying. You know, if you look at building a test plant with our technology, which requires no fracking, our only environmental emission is clean water, we could build a test plant for about $1 billion. Okay. A nuclear plant today, a new one, is anywhere from 8 to 12 billion. Let's call it 10 billion. So our technology would cost about 10% per plant to build. Given the more than $160 billion that's been spent over the last decade or two on this whole issue, we could have built 160 sealed geothermal energy plants, and folks, that's not nothing. That's something. Okay, just saying. So anyway, that's my view of the whole thing. I don't understand the defensiveness between France's leaders and America. Seems like a waste of time to me. I think we should be working together to solve problems, not criticizing each other for doing what's in our best interest today. We can all go forward in the future together. Along those lines, thanks for listening, and I hope that you all have a great holiday season, a great Christmas, and a great New Year. And thank you.